Somebody get this woman away from my machines before she sweeps herself into a lawsuit. Cal Rusk said it loud enough for the buyers to hear. The production floor of Rusk Components in Cedar Rapids had been polished for the morning showcase, every yellow safety rail wiped clean, every banner straightened, every worker warned to smile. A dozen guests stood behind the marked line in visitor glasses, watching aluminum press arms rise and fall like something too powerful to question, and in the middle of it all stood the new floor sweeper. Her name tag said Nora. Her gray coveralls were too big at the shoulders, her hair was pinned under a plain blue cap. In one hand she held a push broom. In the other, half hidden against her palm, was a small red stamp with a metal handle worn smooth from use. Cal noticed it before anyone else did. He walked toward her with the swagger of a man whose picture hung in the lobby, whose voice could decide whether a single mother worked overtime or went home short on rent. His smile stayed fixed for the visitors, but his eyes had gone sharp. "What's that, sweetheart?" he asked. "A toy?" A few people gave careful little laughs, not the workers. They knew better. Nora did not answer right away. She had been sweeping near press line 3, where a strip of red warning tape had curled up from the concrete. She had been watching the machine, not the floor. Watching the way the guard rattled each time the die came down. Watching the way one operator kept glancing at his left hand. Cal reached out and plucked the red stamp from her fingers. "There it is," he said, holding it up for the visitors. "This is why you don't hire through temp agencies during showcase week. They bring their office supplies and start playing inspector." The buyers smiled because they thought they were supposed to. Nora's face barely changed. Only her thumb moved, brushing the empty place where the stamp had been. Beside the line, Denise Harper from Prairie Mutual Manufacturing lowered her tablet. She had come to decide whether Rusk Components would get a 3-year contract big enough to keep 2 shifts running. Her name was stitched neatly on her visitor badge. Her expression was not amused. Cal did not notice. He was enjoying himself too much. He pressed the stamp onto a scrap of cardboard sitting on a parts bin. A red rectangle appeared, dark and wet. Rejected. The word landed upside down, but everyone could read it. Cal laughed. "Well, I'll be. She does tricks." Then he shoved the cardboard against Nora's chest. "Here," he said, "practice on your own resume." A worker near the press stopped feeding parts. Another stared down at his boots. A younger man with oil on his sleeve opened his mouth, then closed it when Cal's plant manager, Vernon Pike, gave him a warning glare. Nora took the cardboard before it fell. For 1 second, the entire showcase balanced on something small and ugly. A boss humiliating a woman whose job was supposed to make her invisible. A group of visitors deciding whether to laugh, object, or pretend they had not seen it. A machine behind them cycling with a damaged guard and a sound like metal clearing its throat. Cal leaned close enough that only the front row heard his next words. "You are here to clean dust, not question my line. If I see you staring at that press again, I'll have security walk you out in front of everybody." Nora's eyes moved past him, not to the buyers, not to the plant manager, to the emergency stop cord hanging above line 3, its red plastic handle dull from years of dirty hands. Then a sharp crack snapped across the floor. The operator at line 3 jerked backward. A piece of trim stock had jumped the guide and slapped the guard so hard the loose panel swung open. It missed his wrist by inches. The room froze in a way laughter never could. Cal spun around, furious at the machine for embarrassing him. "Keep running," he barked. The operator hesitated. Cal pointed at him. "I said keep running. We do not shut down during a customer walkthrough." Nora moved then. Not fast, not dramatic, just certain. She walked past Cal, past the scrap of cardboard marked "Rejected," and pulled the emergency stop cord. The whole line died. Press arms hung in midair, conveyor belts slowed to a shudder. The bright, staged hum of the showcase collapsed into alarms and blinking amber lights. Cal's face hardened. "You just cost this company $250,000, he said. Nora set the broom gently against the rail. "No," she said. "I may have kept you from costing someone a hand." Vernon Pike rushed in, whispering something about calling security. Cal snatched the stamped cardboard from Nora and crumpled it in his fist, the red ink smeared across his palm. That was the first clue nobody understood, because within minutes, that same red mark would appear again. Not on cardboard, not as a joke. On the official shutdown notice that would stop Cal Rusk's most profitable line cold, put his showcase contract at risk, and make every person on that factory floor ask the same question. Who was the woman with the broom? And why had she come to Rusk Components already carrying the stamp that could end him? To understand that, we have to go back 5 days before the shutdown, before the buyers arrived, before Cal Rusk learned that the smallest mark in the room could be the one thing he could not erase. 5 days earlier, Nora Vale woke before the sun in a one-bedroom apartment above a closed barbershop on the east side of Cedar Rapids. The radiator clicked like an old clock. A freight train moved somewhere beyond the dark windows. On the kitchen table sat a mug of cold coffee, a stack of unpaid envelopes, and a red inspection stamp wrapped in a clean cotton handkerchief. Nora did not keep jewelry in that drawer. She kept the stamp. Every morning before work, she unwrapped it, checked the rubber face, and wiped away dust that was never really there. The handle had belonged to her father, Ray Vale, who spent 31 years walking factory floors for the Federal Safety Office before a stroke took the strength from his right side and most of the volume from his voice. When Nora was 12, he taught her how to read a room by listening to machinery. People lie when they're scared, he used to say. Metal tells the truth. Back then, she thought that sounded like something fathers said to make boring work sound noble. Now she understood it as the closest thing he had to a prayer. Ray lived in a care facility 15 minutes away, in a room with one window and a bulletin board full of photographs Nora kept replacing so he would not feel time passing without him. The bill was due every month, whether her government mileage reimbursement arrived on time or not. His insurance covered the bed. It did not cover the extra therapy that helped him swallow without pain. So Nora worked the hours nobody saw. Officially, she was a field compliance officer assigned to industrial safety inspections across eastern Iowa. Unofficially, she had become very good at disappearing. A federal inspector with a clipboard could make a factory manager perform safety for an hour. A woman with a broom could find out how a plant behaved when it believed nobody important was watching. That was why, at 6:20 that Monday morning, Nora parked her dented silver Corolla 2 blocks from Rusk Components and tucked her government ID behind the lining of her wallet. She did not wear a blazer. She did not carry a tablet. She put on oversized gray coveralls, old work shoes, and a blue cap she had bought from a thrift store. The Temp agency badge clipped to her chest said Nora in black block letters. The agency had called it a janitorial fill-in. Nora called it lawful observation. Rusk Components sat near the Cedar River Industrial Corridor, a wide brick and metal plant with flags out front and a billboard facing the road. The billboard showed Cal Rusk in a hard hat, smiling beside the words, "Built Safe." Built Local. Nora had seen that slogan in too many complaint files. 2 weeks earlier, an anonymous worker had mailed a paper note to the regional safety office. No email, no phone call, just 4 handwritten lines on notebook paper. Line 3, guard loose. People told not to report near misses. Showcase Friday. Someone will get hurt. The note had no signature, but the fear in it was specific. That mattered. People did not risk their jobs for vague rumors. Nora's supervisor had authorized a preliminary inspection, but Rusk Components was politically loud and carefully lawyered. Cal Rusk donated to workforce programs, gave interviews about American manufacturing, and knew how to turn every inquiry into a public insult about red tape killing jobs. So Nora asked for 2 days undercover before the formal visit. By Tuesday, she had her answer. The first sign came before lunch. A young operator at Press Line 3 flinched every time the die came down. He fed trim stock with his left hand, then pulled back fast as if the machine had already taught him a lesson. The fixed guard did not sit flush. One bolt hole was empty. Another had been stuffed with a shiny washer too small for the bracket. Nora swept the aisle twice to make sure. The second sign came near the break room, where a laminated safety checklist hung under a plastic cover. Every box had been marked green for 6 straight weeks. The signatures at the bottom were neat and identical, as if one hand had done them all at the same sitting. She did not touch the sheet. She did not photograph it in the open. She simply memorized the date sequence and kept moving. At 3:15, Vernon Pike found her beside a scrap bin. Vernon was the plant manager, a tall man with a shaved head and a voice that carried even when he whispered. His shirt was pressed. His shoes were too clean for the floor. He watched Nora's broom more than her face. "You're the temp," he said. "Yes, sir. You see spills, you clean them. You see parts on the floor, you flag maintenance. You do not talk to operators while they're running. I understand. And don't wander near line 3 unless you're told. We have visitors Friday." There it was, the deadline. Friday's showcase. Nora nodded once and pushed her broom toward the aisle. She had learned long ago that some men mistook quiet for permission. It made them careless. That evening, she visited her father. Ray sat in his recliner with a blanket over his knees, watching a baseball game with the sound turned low. His right hand rested curled against his chest. His left hand still had the old habit of tapping 2 fingers when he was thinking. Nora placed the wrapped stamp on the small table beside him. His eyes moved to it. "I took it out today," she said. Ray's mouth pulled with effort. "Bad? Could be." He breathed through his nose, frustrated by the slow machinery of his own body. Then he tapped twice. "Tell me." So she did. Not names, not details that would cross a line, just enough for him to understand the shape of it. A press guard that moved when it should not. A plant manager warning the wrong person to stay away. A public showcase at the end of the week. Ray's eyes sharpened the way they used to when he entered a factory and heard something wrong before anyone else did. But she also knew the other side. If she moved too early, Cal Rusk would clean up the floor, coach the workers, and bury the truth behind fresh paint and perfect paperwork. If she waited too long, the note writer's warning might become a hospital visit. On Wednesday morning, the temp agency texted her new instructions. "Rusk wants you through Friday, extra hours. Stay available during showcase." Nora stared at the phone in the dim kitchen. Friday was not just a customer event anymore. It was a trap with an audience. She wrapped the red stamp again and slid it into the deepest pocket of her work bag. Then she picked up her father's old thermos, the one with his initials scratched near the lid, and locked the apartment door behind her. By the time she reached the plant, the billboard out front had workers posing beneath Cal's smile. Inside, the machines were already running. And somewhere on that floor, the person who had written the anonymous warning was waiting to see whether anyone had listened. By Wednesday afternoon, Rusk Components had stopped feeling like a factory and started feeling like a stage. Fresh banners hung over the main aisle. Blue tape marked the route visitors would take. A maintenance crew repainted the chipped edges of the safety rails, though no one replaced the missing bolt on line 3. Cal Rusk liked paint. He liked anything that showed well from 10 feet away. At 56, Cal had built his public image around being the kind of owner politicians love to photograph. He wore American flag lapel pins. He gave speeches about bringing work back to Iowa. He kept a framed newspaper article in the lobby with the headline, "Local Manufacturer Saves 200 Jobs." Workers knew the other Cal, the one who counted bathroom minutes during overtime, the one who called injuries personal carelessness, the one who said a complaint was just a person auditioning for unemployment. His private fear was simple. He could not stand being seen as small. So every rule in the plant became a mirror for his pride. Safety rules were acceptable when they made him look disciplined. They became an insult when they slowed production. That was why Vernon Pike carried a clipboard like a weapon. On Wednesday, Vernon gathered the floor crew before second break and reminded them about Friday's showcase. "No unauthorized conversations with visitors," he said. "No stopping the line unless there is actual contact with the body. No side comments about repairs, schedules, or personal opinions. Customers are here to see capacity. A man near line 3 shifted his weight. Nora recognized him as the operator who kept guarding his left hand. His name was Eli Marsh. He was maybe 28, thin from too many skipped meals with a wedding ring polished dull from work. He had the cautious eyes of someone calculating rent in his head. Vernon noticed him, too. "You got a question, Eli?" Eli's jaw worked once. "The panel still kicks out on the downstroke." Vernon smiled without warmth. "Maintenance says it's within tolerance. It slapped open yesterday. Then keep your hand where it belongs." A few workers lowered their eyes. Nora kept sweeping near the edge of the group. Her broom moved slowly, gathering metal dust into a neat gray line. Her face gave Vernon nothing. That bothered him. After the huddle broke, Eli passed close enough to drop a twisted scrap of aluminum into Nora's dustpan. He did not pause. He did not speak. But the scrap was shaved on one side, curled hard from a bad feed, and bright where it had struck something it should not have touched. Nora covered it with dust and pushed the pan away. It was not official proof, not yet, but it was a warning with sharp edges. Near the lobby, Cal rehearsed the showcase with Denise Harper, the purchasing director from Prairie Mutual. Harper's company needed parts for agricultural equipment, and the contract would make Rusk components look stronger than it was. She was practical, watchful, and unimpressed by volume. "We run lean," Cal told her, sweeping an arm toward the floor. "That's why we can promise delivery when bigger suppliers get buried in committees." Harper glanced toward line 3. "Lean is fine. Fragile is expensive." Cal's smile thinned. "Nothing fragile here." Vernon gave a small laugh beside him, too quick and too loyal. Nora emptied her dustpan nearby, close enough to hear, far enough to remain furniture. Harper's attention briefly touched Nora's name tag, not with pity, with recognition of another working adult in a room full of performance. Cal caught the glance. "You'll have to excuse the extra cleaning staff," he said. "We brought in temporary help so the place looks as good as it runs." Nora tied off the trash bag. Vernon added, "They're instructed to stay clear of production. That was the rule they weaponized. Stay clear. Stay quiet. Stay in the role assigned to you." At 4:40, the almost exposed clue came from the simplest mistake. A maintenance cart rolled past Nora with a parts tray on top. In that tray sat 3 replacement guard bolts still sealed in a plastic packet, tagged for press line 3. The work order beneath them had a red priority sticker, but the status box was stamped closed. Nora saw only a corner before Vernon's hand came down over the paper. "You need something?" he asked. She straightened with the trash bag in her fist. "No, sir. Then stop sightseeing." He pulled the cart himself into the maintenance bay. That one glimpse changed the case. A loose guard could be neglect. A closed work order with unused parts meant someone had created the appearance of a repair. If Nora could confirm who signed it, the inspection would no longer be about a rattling panel. It would be about a knowingly falsified safety record. But she could not simply walk away and file from a distance. The showcase was less than 2 days away. Line 3 was running double shifts to build inventory for the visitors. If Nora left, her access vanished. If she revealed herself too soon, Cal would shut her out, call his lawyer, and give the plant just enough time to hide the condition before a formal team arrived. So she stayed in the gray coveralls and let them underestimate her. That evening, as workers clocked out, Eli lingered near the lockers with his lunch cooler in one hand. He waited until Vernon disappeared into the office hallway. Then he spoke without facing Nora. "My brother lost 2 fingers in a feed press in Muscatine," he said. "Different company, same sound." Nora tightened the knot on a trash bag. "What sound? When the guard is pretending." It was the closest thing to testimony he dared give. Before she could answer, Cal's voice cut across the floor. "Eli, you planning to sweep now, too?" Eli stiffened. Cal strolled over, hands in his jacket pockets, expensive boots clicking on concrete that other people had scrubbed for him. "You and the Temp having a labor meeting?" "No, sir," Eli said. Cal's gaze moved to Nora. Funny how people with the least responsibility always have the most opinions. Nora lowered her eyes, but not in surrender. She was watching his hands. Cal had ink on his right thumb, red ink, the same color used on the closed stamp in maintenance. It might have meant nothing. It might have meant everything. He noticed her attention and rubbed his thumb against his palm. "Clock out," he told Eli. "And you, Nora, remember what you're paid for." He walked away before either of them answered. Eli waited until Cal was gone. "You should stay away from line 3. "Is that advice?" she asked, "or a warning?" Eli's face carried the exhausted honesty of a man already trapped. Both. Outside, dusk settled over the parking lot. Inside, line 3 started another overtime run, the loose guard ticking with every cycle. Nora took her break in a supply closet that smelled of mop water and cardboard. From her work bag, she removed her father's red stamp and held it under the bare bulb. Rejected. The word was simple, almost harsh. But in Ray Vale's hand, it had never meant shame. It meant stop before harm became permanent. Nora wrapped it again and slid it away. By Friday, she knew Cal Rusk would have his audience, so she would need one too. Thursday began with a safety meeting no one believed. Vernon Pike stood beneath the time clock with a laminated sheet in his hand and read from it like a man paying a debt he resented. "Management remains committed to a safe, efficient workplace," he said. "All employees are expected to follow posted procedures and report hazards through the proper chain." The proper chain meant Vernon. That was the joke nobody laughed at. Nora swept near the lockers, listening to the floor instead of the speech. Line 3 had a new rhythm that morning. The guard no longer rattled every cycle. It rattled every third cycle, which meant someone had tightened one side and left the other weak enough to pass a casual glance. That was more dangerous than before. A broken thing announces itself. A half-fixed thing invites trust. After the meeting, Vernon caught Nora by the supply shelves. "You're spending a lot of time around production. I clean where they send me. I send you." His voice dropped. "From now until close tomorrow, you stay on trash, bathrooms, and the visitor aisle. You do not enter maintenance. You do not touch bins. You do not speak unless spoken to." Nora nodded. Vernon studied her face, searching for resentment he could punish. He found none, and that seemed to irritate him more. "You got family working here?" "No." "Then I can't figure out why you care so much." Nora slid a fresh liner into a trash can. "I like clean floors." He gave a short laugh and walked away. The first dismissal had become a warning. By lunch, the warning became personal. Cal gathered a few supervisors near the front aisle to rehearse where the visitors would stand. Nora was wiping fingerprints from a glass display case full of sample parts when he noticed her. "There she is," he said. "Our silent quality control department." Vernon smiled on cue. Cal lifted one of the polished parts from the display and held it toward Nora. "You know what this is?" "A stamped bracket." His eyebrows rose. "She speaks." A supervisor chuckled. Cal placed the bracket in her gloved hand. "Tell me what's wrong with it." Nora waited once. The edge had a burr, small but real, the kind that could slice a thumb through a cheap glove. She set it back carefully. "It needs deburring." The little group went still. Cal's smile thinned. "You hear that, Vernon? The Temp has standards." Vernon's eyes warned her too late. Cal picked up the bracket and ran his own thumb along the edge, avoiding the burr by instinct. This part passed inspection. Then the burr should be removed before it ships. A chair scraped somewhere in the office doorway. Denise Harper had arrived early for a pre-showcase walkthrough and had caught the last sentence. Cal saw her and recovered fast. "We encourage attention to detail here," he said, "even from cleaning staff." Then, when Harper moved on with Vernon, Cal leaned close to Nora. "You embarrass me in front of a customer again," he said softly, "and your agency gets a complaint that follows you to every warehouse in this county." There it was. Job risk. Not the job she was pretending to have, but the kind of threat he used on people who could not afford another black mark. Nora understood why Eli had gone quiet for so long. At 2:05, the practical threat arrived. Eli's feed jammed. The machine stopped for less than a minute, but Vernon came down the aisle like the building was on fire. "What happened?" Strip twisted. "Did it contact the guard?" Eli hesitated. Vernon angled his body so the rest of the floor could see. Simple question, it touched. Then why isn't there damage? Because the panel had been catching it for weeks, Nora thought. Because damage becomes normal when power tells everyone to call it production. Eli swallowed. "I cleared it." Vernon wrote something on his clipboard. "Failure to maintain flow during showcase prep. That's your second notation this month." Eli's face changed. Nora knew that look. A man seeing his paycheck tilt. After Vernon left, she rolled a trash bin near the press and spoke without facing Eli. "Do you have copies of the notations?" "No." "Pay stubs? Schedule changes?" He gave a bitter breath. "You union?" "No." "Lawyer?" "No." "Then stop asking questions that make people remember you." Before Nora could answer, a small shape moved in the far visitor aisle. Eli's wife had come in with their daughter, a little girl in a pink coat holding a lunch bag. The office receptionist pointed them toward the break room. Eli's daughter saw him and waved with her whole arm. For half a second, Eli's face softened. Then the press cycled behind him, and the loose guard popped hard enough for the child to flinch. Nora saw Eli's wife pull the girl closer. That was the moral choice. It had been there all week, but now it had a child's startled eyes attached to it. Nora could preserve the case by waiting. Or she could intervene before the showcase and risk losing the chance to prove the pattern. She chose a third path. At the end of shift, while Vernon walked Harper to the lobby, Nora entered the maintenance bay with a mop bucket. She moved like someone doing exactly what she had been told to do. Because people rarely challenge a person carrying something heavy and unpleasant. The closed work order lay under a magnet on the side of a cabinet. She did not steal it. She did not alter it. She lifted her phone, took one clean photo, and put the paper back with the magnet aligned exactly as it had been. There was the supporting factual proof. Work Order 3-1-7B. Press Line 3 Guard Assembly. Status, closed, parts issued. Final sign-off, C. Rusk. The signature was not Vernon's, it was Cal's. A sound at the bay door cut through the room. Nora slid the phone into her pocket and reached for the mop handle. Eli stood there, pale. "You shouldn't be in here," he whispered. "You shouldn't be running that press." His eyes moved to the cabinet, then back to her. "They'll fire me if they know I talked. I'm not asking you to talk." "Then what are you doing?" Nora let the mop rest against the bucket. For the first time that week, she let a piece of the truth show. "I'm making sure someone else has to." Eli stared at her, trying to place the calm in her voice. Before he could ask, Vernon called from the main aisle. "Nora!" She grabbed the bucket and pushed it through the opposite door. Vernon met her near the supply closet. His hand shot out and caught the strap of her work bag hanging from a hook. "What's in here?" Nora's pulse tightened, but her face stayed blank. "My lunch." He unzipped it. Inside were a thermos, a folded sweater, a pack of gum, and the cotton handkerchief wrapped around her father's stamp. Vernon pinched the cloth between two fingers. "What's this?" "A family thing. Open it." Nora held his gaze. "No." The word was small. It changed the air. Vernon's jaw flexed. "Temps don't tell me no." "Then write me up." He almost did more than that. His fingers tightened around the cloth. Then Cal's voice came from the office hall, calling him into a final showcase briefing. Vernon tossed the handkerchief back into the bag. "You are gone after Friday," he said, "maybe sooner." When he left, Nora checked the stamp. No damage, no missing piece. Her thumb rested on the worn handle until her breathing evened out. That night, she did not go straight home. She drove to her father's care facility and found him awake, the television flickering blue over his blanket. She placed the thermos on the table, then showed him the photo of the signed work order. Ray studied it a long time. His left hand tapped once. "Danger. I know. Twice. Ready?" Nora sat beside him. She wanted to tell him yes. Instead, she told the truth. Almost. Ray reached toward the drawer in his bedside table. His fingers fumbled until Nora opened it for him. Inside was an old leather case with his federal badge, retired and dulled by years, tucked beside a folded card. On the card, in Ray's uneven post-stroke writing, were 5 words. Make the record speak publicly. That was the piece she had been missing. Cal could survive a private warning. He could bury an internal complaint. He could punish one frightened operator and call it leadership. But Friday's showcase gave him witnesses he had invited himself. Nora took a photo of the card, kissed her father's forehead, and returned the badge to the drawer. The decisive step came after midnight. At her kitchen table, she prepared the formal stop-use notice in draft, leaving the final inspection fields blank until she had direct observation during the event. She printed one copy on the portable printer she used for field work and placed it in a plain envelope. Then she wrapped the red stamp and put it on top. If Cal Rusk chose safety before the visitors arrived, the envelope would never open. But if he chose pride in front of everyone, Nora would make sure the record spoke where no one could pretend not to hear it. Friday morning, Rusk components smelled like floor wax and hot metal. The visitor aisle gleamed. The banners hung straight. Cal Rusk walked the floor in a navy blazer and steel-toed boots polished so brightly they reflected the yellow safety lines. Nora arrived with the cleaning crew at 6:10. In her work bag were 3 things: her father's thermos, the sealed envelope, and the red stamp wrapped in cotton. By 8:30, the workers had been warned twice. No unscheduled stops, no loose talk, no complaints, no visible problems. Vernon Pike stood near line 3 with his clipboard, watching Eli Marsh as if suspicion alone could hold a guard in place. Eli's wife and daughter were not there now, but the memory of the little girl flinching stayed with Nora every time the press came down. At 9:05, Denise Harper entered with 4 Prairie Mutual visitors. Cal greeted them beneath the lobby newspaper clipping, then guided them onto the floor like a man leading guests through a house he had already cleaned for sale. "Today, you'll see exactly why we can meet your volume," he said. "No excuses, no committees, just American manufacturing doing what it does best." Harper's tablet was tucked under one arm. She wore visitor glasses and a calm expression that gave nothing away. The showcase began. For the first 20 minutes, Cal performed beautifully. He named machines, quoted delivery numbers, slapped shoulders, praised loyalty, and never once mentioned the men and women who had been told not to speak. Nora stayed near the visitor aisle with a broom. She watched Line 3. The guard held through 8 cycles, then 12. Then the right side jumped, barely visible unless someone knew where to look. Eli saw it. His neck tightened. Nora moved closer, sweeping dust that was not there. Vernon appeared beside her. "Bathrooms," he said. "I was assigned to the aisle. I'm reassigning you." Across the floor, Cal was bringing Harper's group toward line 3. Nora could feel the timing narrowing. If she left now, the moment would pass into a staged demonstration. If she refused openly too soon, Vernon could drag her away before the hazard declared itself. She pushed the broom toward the restroom hall, slow enough to keep the press in sight. Then Eli's feed strip bowed. The metal curled against the guide. The die came down. The loose guard kicked open with a flat crack that cut through Cal's speech. Eli jerked back. The strip snapped free and slapped the panel where his wrist had been a breath earlier. Several visitors flinched. One worker swore under his breath. Cal's polished smile vanished. "Keep running," he snapped. Eli froze with both hands above the feed table. Cal pointed at the controls. "I said, keep running. We do not shut down during a customer walkthrough." That was the moment from the beginning. But this time, Nora heard the deeper thing beneath it. Not anger. Fear. Cal Rusk was more afraid of being exposed than of a worker losing blood on his floor. Nora walked to the emergency stop cord and pulled it. The line died. Alarms blinked amber. The press arms hung suspended. Somewhere in the crowd, Harper's tablet lowered inch by inch. Cal came at Nora fast. "You just cost this company $250,000. "No," Nora said. "I may have kept you from costing someone a hand." Vernon moved in from the side. "Security." Nora reached for her work bag, but Vernon got there first. He snatched it off the janitorial cart and dumped it onto a nearby parts table. The thermos rolled and hit a stack of sample brackets. The envelope slid beneath a clipboard. The cotton handkerchief landed in front of Cal. He picked it up. "Nora's family thing," Vernon said, loud enough for the visitors. "She got real protective of it yesterday." Cal unfolded the cloth and found the stamp. His mood changed. Public embarrassment turned into opportunity. He held it up, smiling again, but now the smile had teeth. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we found the source of today's confusion." A few people shifted awkwardly. Cal pressed the stamp onto a scrap of cardboard and showed the red word to the visitors. "Rejected." He laughed once. "This is why you don't give a broom to somebody who wants a badge." Nora's throat tightened. Not because of the insult. She had heard worse in quieter rooms, because his thumb rested on the same worn handle her father had carried through foundries, machine shops, packing plants, and grain elevators for more than 3 decades. Ray Vale had used that stamp when managers begged him to look away. He had used it when workers were too scared to say what nearly killed them. He had taught Nora that the mark was never about power. It was about stopping harm while there was still time. Cal shoved the stamped cardboard against her chest. "Practice on your own resume." The red ink touched her coveralls. A couple of visitors gave nervous smiles that died quickly. Eli's face hardened with shame, though none of it belonged to him. Harper said nothing, but her jaw set. Cal was not finished. He lifted Nora's thermos next, turning it until he saw the scratched initials near the lid. "R.V. What's this?" he said. "Another prop?" Nora's hand tightened. "Put it down." The words were quiet, but everyone close enough heard the line she had drawn. Cal glanced at the visitors, then back at her. "Now she gives orders." He unscrewed the cap and sniffed. "Coffee. Well, that checks out. Cleaning crew runs on caffeine and resentment." Eli took one step forward. Vernon blocked him with an elbow. Cal tipped the thermos over the parts table. Cold coffee spilled across the sample brackets, across the cardboard, across the cotton cloth. It spread toward the sealed envelope and soaked one corner before Nora caught it. That was the deepest wound. Not the mockery. Not the job threat. Not the way he had made a room full of adults watch a woman be shamed for doing the one decent thing in the building. It was the casual ruin of something her father could no longer hold. For a second, Nora almost forgot the case. Her chest rose once, sharp and painful. Her eyes burned. She could see Ray's left hand tapping on the arm of his recliner, asking if she was ready. She could hear his old voice before the stroke stole its strength. Metal tells the truth. Cal saw the emotion and mistook it for defeat. "There we go," he said. "Now maybe you understand hierarchy." Then he reached for the envelope. Nora's hand closed over it first. Vernon grabbed her wrist. Harper's voice cut in. "Take your hand off her." Vernon paused, surprised more by Harper's tone than by the words. Cal gave a practiced chuckle. "Denise, this is an internal staffing matter." "No," Harper said. "It became my matter when you ordered a hazardous line to keep running in front of my team." The visitors behind her had stopped pretending. Phones were out now, not high and obvious, but low near belts and jacket buttons. Workers gathered at the edges of their stations. The showcase had become exactly what Cal feared. An audience he did not control. Cal's face flushed. "You don't know what you saw," he said. Nora pulled her wrist free. The envelope was damp at one corner, but intact. She set it flat on the parts table and wiped coffee from the front with her sleeve. Nora reached into her coverall pocket and took out her wallet. For the first time all morning, her hand trembled. Then it steadied. Before she could open it, a voice came from the lobby entrance. "Nora Vale?" Everyone turned. A Cedar Rapids police officer stood beside a gray-haired man in a federal field jacket, his badge clipped plainly at his belt. Behind them, The receptionist hovered with one hand over her mouth. The man in the jacket was Martin Cho, Nora's regional director. His eyes moved from the stopped press, to Eli's shaken hands, to the coffee dripping off the parts table, to the stamp in Cal Rusk's ink-stained grip. Then Cho said, clear enough for the whole floor to hear, "Inspector Vale, are you initiating a stop-use order?" Cal Rusk blinked once. Then he laughed. It came out too loud, too polished. The kind of laugh a man uses when the ground moves under him, and he needs everyone else to pretend it did not. "Inspector," he said, "this woman is a temp cleaner." Nora opened her wallet and slid out her federal credentials. She did not raise her voice. She did not make a speech. She simply held the ID where the nearest visitors, workers, and Martin Cho could see it. Nora Vale, Field Compliance Officer. The laughter disappeared piece by piece. Vernon Pike's clipboard lowered. Eli Marsh stared as if the floor had opened and shown him a door instead of a fall. Denise Harper's expression did not change much, but one hand moved to her tablet and began recording openly now. Cal's smile fought to stay alive. "Anyone can carry a badge wallet," he said. "I don't know what game this is, but she entered my facility under false pretenses." Joe came down the aisle with the slow patience of someone used to panic. Rusk Components accepted temporary janitorial placement through a third-party agency. Inspector Vale was lawfully present in a non-restricted work area when she observed an apparent imminent hazard. "That's your story," Cal snapped. "No," Joe said. "That is the start of the record." Cal shifted toward the visitors. "You saw what happened. She interfered with a live demonstration. She caused the disruption." Eli's voice came from behind the guardrail. "No, she didn't." Every head moved toward him. Eli's hands were still shaking, but this time he did not hide them. "The strip jumped," he said. "Panel kicked open. It's been doing that all week." Vernon cut in. "Eli, think carefully." "I have been," Eli said. His voice cracked, then held. "That's the problem." Cal's jaw tightened. "You're a machine operator, not an engineer." I know what almost hit my hand. That was the witness detail. Small, plain, impossible to dress up. Nora picked up the damp envelope and opened it. The corner had softened from coffee, but the pages inside were dry. Cal saw the form and shook his head. "This is theater." "No," Nora said. "The theater was the showcase." She laid the stop-use notice on the parts table. Then she took the stamp from Cal's hand. He did not release it right away. For one short second, his fingers held the worn metal handle as if keeping it could keep the truth from landing. Nora met his eyes. "Let go." 2 words. Quiet enough to shame him more than shouting could. Cal released it. Nora positioned the stamp over the bottom of the notice. Her thumb rested on the place her father's had rested for 31 years. Before she pressed down, she spoke to the floor. "This stamp belonged to Ray Vale, a federal safety inspector who taught me that a stopped machine can be restarted. A severed hand cannot." Nobody interrupted. Even Cal seemed caught by the name, though only for a beat. Nora pressed the stamp onto the form. Rejected. The red word appeared clean and dark beneath the inspection finding. It was not a joke now. It was not cardboard. It was the central proof of what she had come to do. The same mark Cal had used to humiliate her had always belonged to the work that could stop him. Joe stepped beside her and read the critical line aloud. "Press, line 3, is removed from service pending correction and verification of guarding integrity." Cal's face hardened into something smaller and more frightened. "You cannot shut down my line based on a rattling panel and a crying operator." Harper's voice came next. "Mr. Rusk." Cal swung toward her. "Denise, don't let this nonsense affect the contract. It already has." He opened his mouth, but she raised the tablet. "My team witnessed you order a machine restarted after a near miss. We witnessed your plant manager attempt to remove the person who stopped it. And we witnessed you handling her belongings in front of our people." Cal tried to recover. Heat of the moment. Miscommunication. Nora reached into her coverall pocket and took out her phone. One factual record confirms prior knowledge, she said. Vernon's face changed before Cal's did. Nora opened the photo and held the screen toward Cho, then Harper, then the nearest workers. She did not pass it around. She did not dramatize it. She let the words do their job. Work Order 3-1-7B. Press Line 3 Guard Assembly. Status, closed. Parts issued. Final sign-off, C. Rusk. The room understood before Cal did, or before he allowed himself to. The unused replacement bolts were still in the maintenance tray. The guard was still loose. The work order said the repair was done, and the signature belonged to the man who had just ordered the line to keep running. Harper lowered her tablet slowly. Eli whispered, "You signed it off." Cal heard him. "I signed dozens of forms," he snapped. "That doesn't mean I personally inspected every bolt." Nora nodded once. "It means you certified the hazard corrected." Vernon stepped backward half a foot, then stopped when he realized people were watching him. Cal pointed at Nora. She was trespassing in maintenance. "That photo is inadmissible, unethical, whatever word your lawyers like." Cho's expression remained flat. "We will preserve the record and review access. Right now, the line remains stopped. You'll hear from my counsel. I expect to." Cal's control began to split. His voice rose, and with it went the last layer of his public image. "You people come in here with stamps and forms and scare workers who should be grateful they have jobs. Do you know what happens if this contract freezes? Do you know how many families you hurt?" Nora did not move. That accusation was the old trick. Make safety sound selfish. Make truth sound expensive. Make the person who names the danger responsible for the danger existing. She had heard it in other plants. Ray had heard it before her. This time, she answered where everyone could hear. "Your workers are not shields for your paperwork." That was the line that settled it. Eli's shoulders dropped as if he had been carrying something too long. A woman near the packing station wiped her cheek with the back of her glove. Harper looked at Nora, then at line 3, and made her decision in the space of one breath. "Prairie Mutual is suspending the showcase review pending the safety investigation," Harper said. "We will notify our procurement committee this afternoon." Cal stared at her. "You're making a mistake." "No," Harper said. "I'm avoiding one." Cho gave instructions to the police officer, who moved to keep the visitor aisle clear while workers were directed away from the stopped press. No one was arrested. No dramatic handcuffs appeared. Reality moved with colder weight than that. The line stayed dead. Cho photographed the guard, the controls, the stamped notice, and the parts tray in maintenance. Vernon was instructed not to alter the work area. Rusk Components Corporate Counsel was called. The company's safety logs were requested for formal review. Eli was told he could give a protected statement without Vernon present. And Cal, who had built the entire morning around being watched, now had to stand while the watching turned into evidence. He tried once more to regain the floor. "Everybody back to work," he shouted. No one moved. Cho faced him. "Mr. Rusk, production on unaffected lines may resume after we complete a walkthrough. Press line 3 may not operate. If anyone attempts to restart it, enforcement escalates." The word enforcement landed harder than anger. Cal's mouth closed. Nora picked up the soaked cotton handkerchief from the parts table. Coffee had stained one corner brown, red ink had bled into the fibers. She folded it around the stamp with care that made several people look away, ashamed they had watched Cal treat it like a toy. Eli came to the rail. "Inspector Vale," he said. The title sounded strange in his mouth and honest. Nora faced him. He swallowed. "Thank you." She nodded. "You pulled your hand back. Don't forget that part." It mattered to say. He was not just rescued. He had survived by listening to the truth his own body already knew. Harper approached the table and set one of her business cards beside the shutdown notice. "For the record," she said to Nora, "my team will provide written witness statements by Monday." Cal heard that and went still. Witness statements, procurement suspension, federal review, A signed work order. A red stamp he had mocked in front of everyone. Nora slid her credentials back into her wallet. Her coveralls were stained with coffee and red ink. Her broom still leaned against the rail where she had left it. For a moment, she seemed again like the smallest person on the floor. Then workers began clearing a path for her. Not out of fear, out of recognition. Nora walked past Cal without touching him, without insulting him, without giving him the performance he wanted. At the end of the aisle, she paused beside the dead press and placed the official notice in a clear sleeve on the control panel. The red stamp faced outward. Everyone could read it. And this time, nobody laughed. The first consequence was not loud. It was a lockout tag on press line 3. A red tag hung from the control panel before noon, with the stamped stop-use notice sealed behind clear plastic. Workers passed it in small groups, not celebrating, not whispering much, just slowing down long enough to read the word Cal Rusk had tried to turn into a joke. Rejected. By that afternoon, the showcase was over. Prairie Mutual left without touring the final assembly area. Denise Harper sent a formal letter suspending the review until Rusk Components completed an independent safety audit and protected employee interviews. Martin Cho's office opened a case file. Outside counsel contacted the plant before closing time. No one dragged Cal out of the building. That would have been too simple. Instead, he stayed in his glass office while people he used to interrupt began writing statements without him in the room. Vernon Pike was placed on administrative leave the following Monday. The company said it was temporary. Everyone understood temporary had a different sound when lawyers were involved. Cal gave one local interview calling the shutdown a misunderstanding during an otherwise strong customer visit. The clip lasted 90 seconds. Then Harper's witness statement became part of the procurement record, and Rusk Components stopped issuing quotes. Within 2 weeks, the board that backed Cal's expansion loan brought in an outside operations consultant. Press line 3 remained down until a new guarding assembly was installed, tested, and signed off by someone whose last name was not Rusk. Eli Marsh kept his job. More than that, he gave a protected statement. So did 2 packers, 1 maintenance tech, and a shipping clerk who had seen Vernon throw away near-miss forms. None of them became heroes on television. They went home tired, came back the next day, and found the air in the plant a little easier to breathe. Nora returned once for the follow-up inspection. This time, she came through the front door. No coveralls, no broom. Her federal ID clipped plainly to her jacket. The receptionist recognized her and stood a little straighter. On the floor, workers did not crowd her or clap. They simply made room. That felt better, quieter, realer. Eli met her at line 3. The new guard sat flush against the frame. Fresh bolts held clean and tight. The emergency stop cord had been lowered 2 inches so a shorter worker could reach it without stretching. "My daughter asked about you," Eli said. Nora checked the panel. "Did she?" She said, "Is the broom lady the boss now?" Nora almost smiled. "Tell her the broom lady just knew when to stop a machine." Eli nodded, then studied the red tag being removed from the controls. "I should have said something sooner." Nora closed her inspection folder. "You said it when it counted." He did not forgive himself all at once. People rarely do. But his shoulders were not as high as they had been before. That evening, Nora drove to her father's care facility with the cleaned stamp in her coat pocket. Ray was sitting by the window watching July lights settle across the parking lot. The baseball game was on mute. His dinner tray had been pushed aside, peas untouched, dessert gone. Nora placed the stamp in his left hand. His fingers curled around the handle slowly. "There's a stain," she said. Coffee had darkened the edge of the cotton wrap. Red ink marked one fold where Cal's palm had smeared it. Nora had tried to clean it, then stopped. Some marks were not damage. Some were record. Ray studied the stamp, then her face. His hand tapped once. "Done?" Nora sat beside him. "Line 3 is down until repaired. Contract review is suspended. Workers are giving statements. Ray tapped again. You? She took longer with that answer. I'm okay. He did not seem fully convinced, so she added, I got angry. His mouth moved toward a smile. Nora breathed out, the kind of breath she had been holding since Friday morning. But I did it right. Ray's fingers tightened around the stamp. With effort, he lifted it an inch and pressed the handle back into her palm. Not his anymore. That was what the gesture meant. Nora looked down at it, and for a moment she was 12 again, standing beside him on a factory catwalk, trying to understand why he listened to machines like they were people asking for help. Now she knew. Machines did not need dignity. People did. And sometimes protecting one was the only way to protect the other. A month later, Rusk Components posted a new safety reporting policy on every bulletin board in the plant. Anonymous hazard reports went to a third-party hotline. Maintenance closures required photo verification. Emergency stops could no longer be counted against productivity bonuses. It was not a perfect ending. Cal remained president while the board review continued, but his authority was narrowed. Vernon did not return to the production floor. Prairie Mutual reopened discussions only after the audit, and on a smaller contract with strict safety conditions. That was justice in the real world. Not instant ruin. Not applause forever. Just consequences that stayed after the cameras left. Nora kept working. And too many quiet workers, she still carried a broom. But the red stamp no longer lived wrapped away like a relic. She kept it in a small case on her desk beside a photograph of Ray standing younger and broader in front of a steel mill gate. Under the photo, Nora placed the stained cotton handkerchief, folded so the red mark showed. On hard mornings, before she left for another floor where someone powerful had mistaken fear for order, she touched the handle once. Not for luck, for memory. And somewhere in Cedar Rapids, a little girl in a pink coat grew up knowing that a machine stopped in time meant her father came home with both hands. So let me ask you this. When a powerful person humiliates someone quiet in public, do you think they reveal the victim's weakness or their own? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if stories about dignity, truth, and justice matter to you, subscribe for the next one.